People gradually start gathering in the hall, and the crowd gets bigger and bigger. Those present admire how enchanting the melody played by the musicians is. Over time, even though the event has already started, there are still more people. Their eyes suddenly land on a man doing amazing things. Suddenly, the glasses arranged in a pyramid shape begin to fill with alcohol. The girl, surrounded by spectators, says it's time to drink, because one day everyone will die, and they must live their lives without regrets. Some of these spectators looked at the girl with disapproval, not understanding her behavior. These same people even thought she was acting as if this were her second life. Hearing their dialogues, this girl immediately rushed to correct them, because this was actually her 20th life. Surrounded by all these spectators was the youngest daughter of the Marquis, Roberta Bernadette, who had just turned 20. It was the novel Leona's Misfortune, famous for its sweet and refreshing romance. In this work, Roberta was a villainess who interfered with the main characters. But this did not mean at all that she was truly an evil person. In fact, a little while ago, she was just a reader of this novel. It all happened when she was reading the scene where the villainess died late at night. As she read, she found it amusing how the main characters mercilessly killed the negative character. But after falling asleep, upon opening her eyes, she realized she was in the body of this evil girl. That day, when she woke up, she couldn't understand at all what was happening. The maid quickly ran to her and informed her that the main protagonist's cat, Leona, was not breathing. The same maid suddenly declared Roberta guilty and slowly took away the crying Leona. She justified it by saying that the girl was angry because her fiancé proposed marriage to her friend. While the supposed culprit ran after her friend, something even stranger began to happen. Slowly, everyone present in the hall began to grimace in pain. After a couple of seconds, Roberta turned around and noticed that the hall was filled with the lifeless bodies of the maids. That day, everything happened completely in a fog, although the girl didn't even have time to come to her senses. Very little time passed, and the culprit was already awaiting her own execution. The insensitive man asked the girl to lift her head. He began to talk about how the criminal held a grudge against the fiancé for proposing marriage to her friend, which is why she brutally killed Leona's cat and then poisoned an innocent lady at a tea party. The boy's last words were that the girl was being sentenced to death. The last thing the culprit saw was her friend's crying face. When Leona screamed her name, it was already too late and the execution was complete. Thus died Roberta, realizing that it would be better this way and that this would be the end. She finishes remembering her first death and realizes that this is already the 20th time. In her first life, she was caught red-handed committing all sorts of crimes. Then, the tea at a party she attended was poisoned. And then, although she deliberately stayed home, it was proven that she was the one who ordered the murder. This went on and on. They even went so far as to claim that she committed murder. And she escaped. In the end, she was always sentenced to death, even though she couldn't even kill an insect, much less a cat or a person. She expressed most of her thoughts out loud, knowing that in the end she would be sentenced to death again. Some women around her condemned her, calling her shameless. They perfectly understood that they shouldn't even talk to someone like that. Roberta suddenly screams that she will die anyway, so she will do whatever she wants. Suddenly, Leona, agitated, approaches her and asks her to stop. She says sadly that people might misunderstand her friend. Suddenly, Roberta asks if she sees that everyone present is calmly insulting her. She wonders if she is afraid that they will be seen together now. Even though she supposedly hurt her friend for 20 lives, she stubbornly remained by her side. Leona always did her best to justify the truly innocent Bernadette, but on every occasion, her words were not heard, and the execution still took place. People whispered behind her back, saying that Leona was a poor girl who was almost killed, but that she still believed in that wicked girl. Leona asks her friend to accompany her, because it is clear from her that she has been drunk for a long time. The woman in front of her asks her to go first, and then says she wants to have a little more fun. Lost in thought, she realizes that she is in an incredibly good mood today. Roberta promises her friend that she will drink a little more and then leave. This time, she also had no intention of doing anything, but Leona still suffered because of her. The girl smiles slightly and bids a final farewell to her departing friend. She knew that now, if she left, something good would happen. Upon leaving the hall, Leona suddenly bumps into a tall guy. Roberta knew that now her friend had to meet a man who would protect her from her own friend. The girl notices their collision and turns around, finally feeling relief. Music plays in the hall. Everyone dances while Roberta heads somewhere, while simultaneously finishing another bottle. Not seeing a man walking beside her, she suddenly bumps into him. The bottle falls from her hands with a loud clatter, after which it begins to roll somewhere. Roberta crawls desperately after it, trying to reach the unfinished portion of alcohol. The bottle finally stops at the feet of someone who reminds her of another person. The girl raises her head and sees a tall boy in front of her. The voice asking if she was okay sounded very familiar. The stranger lifts the girl in front of him and then realizes that she is apparently drunk. Roberta smiles, asks what he is talking about, and then declares that she is leaving. After a while, the boy carefully adjusts his shirt as drops of sweat slowly fall from him. The clothes are scattered everywhere, and not far from him lies Roberta on the bed. The girl slowly opens her eyes and gradually regains consciousness. Suddenly, she jumps up screaming, and the stranger declares that she must have gone mad. Roberta sees the same boy in front of her and begins to feel uncomfortable. She looks at him inquisitively, waking up more and more with every passing second. Raising her voice significantly, she fearfully asks who he is. The girl asks him not to come closer, and he understands that she doesn't remember anything. He informs her that he did not touch her at all, and that she undressed herself. The boy asks her to remember for herself what she did that night. She tries to start remembering from the moment this stranger approached her, assuming she was drunk. Then she smiled calmly and said that the glass was like a sober glass. The guy tried to lift her up. She asked him where her carriage was, because she couldn't even walk normally, and she asked him to let her go. Roberta, after examining him, called the stranger Giraffe because of his height. She suddenly asked why the earth was spinning, and then called the mansion low quality. She screamed that she needed to get out of there as fast as possible. The girl asked him for help, looking into his eyes with pity. She suddenly screamed that she really didn't want to die in agony again. Hearing these words, the stranger quickly took her in his strong arms. He seriously asked where the girl wanted to go. She, annoyed, asked what he was asking now. Without lowering her tone, she said she needed to get out, and he quickly headed for the door. The guests looked at those leaving in shock, not understanding at all what had just happened. Recalling this story, Roberta sits awkwardly on the bed, looks away, and then asks for forgiveness. She suddenly says that she still doesn't understand what happened to her clothes. The boy has to repeat that he in no way undressed her with his hands. She remembers that he said earlier that she decided to undress herself. Roberta recalls recent events again when she finally managed to leave the mansion. Then the girl began to say that she was too hot and that maybe this time she would burn alive. The boy asked for her name because he needed to find her carriage. In response to his questions, she asked him why he needed to know the name of a girl who was destined to die. Without letting him say a word, she said that, since he asked her politely, she would still tell him. Turning around, the girl said her name was Roberta Bernadette. The stranger looked at her, trying to recall the information he had just heard. He said that in that case, he urgently needed to find the coachman. The boy suddenly decided to turn around and noticed that the girl had climbed onto the fountain. She was talking about how she had just escaped from a shitty mansion and now felt hot. The girl put her hand in the water and wondered what kind of situation this was. Suddenly, dejectedly, she announced that she had been fed up for a long time. Roberta tried to convince herself that this time she might survive. Suddenly, she felt an incredible heat again, even though she was already in the water. The boy decided to ask her why she was hot if it was very cold outside. He suddenly invited her to take his hand and leave this place together. The stranger, staring at her, slowly extended his palm towards her. After thinking for a moment, the girl suddenly decided to drag him toward the fountain. She said she never really understood the romance genre. Roberta gently placed her hand on his flushed cheek. She declared that he was her type, after which she leaned in and kissed him. Recalling what happened, the girl apologizes, and he informs her that he had to stop her from undressing in the garden with fountains, and then drag her to the castle. She realizes she caused a huge scene at the ball, and then asks where she is. The stranger calmly informs her that she is at Cygnus Castle. The owner of this castle, the Grand Duke of the Mutant Empire, Gerald Cygnus, has power comparable to the Emperor, and he is also the main character of the novel Leona's Misfortunes. This was the man who would send her to execution to protect his lover, Leona. The girl looks at the floor, absorbing the information received. Worried, she asks him if he is Gerald's subordinate. Roberta asks if she will be executed for causing the disaster. The girl wonders if this time there will be a guillotine, a gallows, or if she will simply be shot. Suddenly, a boy approaches her and tells her that all these thoughts are scary. He says he has no idea what she is so afraid of. Slowly removing his mask, he tells her she shouldn't be doing this. The boy introduces himself as Gerald Cygnus, after which he promises that under no circumstances will he let her die. The girl stares at him, dumbfounded, and realizes she has fallen into the hands of her enemy. She worriedly asks him why he is here, and he wonders why he cannot be at his own home. Suddenly, she says that if everything had gone according to plan, she would have met Leona at the entrance to the ball. Gerald asks her if she is talking about the girl he bumped into at the entrance. Roberta wonders what is happening in her life right now. She says she doesn't understand what they are talking about, but right now she wants to know about her, and not about anyone else. The boy is seriously interested in knowing who Roberta Bernadette is, whom she mentioned a moment ago. She says she is sure he is interested in listening to her, since she has been talking nonsense for a long time. Suddenly, she adds that there is nothing special about her, so it's really not necessary. She says that she is just a friend of young Lady Diamond Leona. The girl realizes that she is just a pebble that His Excellency can kick, and that she is just an ordinary girl. She informs him that she was very drunk, and then declares that she has to leave. The boy notices that she speaks like a book character. He says that ordinary people don't start talking about friends when talking about themselves. Gerald informs her that a person thinks for themselves, experiences emotions, sensations, and this answer is not very human. She suddenly says she knows absolutely nothing about all of the above. The girl didn't understand if she could be in such a place and experience these emotions. She asks if all these feelings belong to her. Roberta says she is very confused and suddenly starts scratching her neck. She reports that she is scared to death as the boy starts approaching her. He grabs her hand to stop her from scratching her neck further. The boy gets worried and asks if these actions cause her pain. She repeats that she is scared to death of what is happening and the feeling of the unknown. Gerald says that if she is really scared, he will give her a chance to make sure. He lets her know that he wants to make her realize that these feelings and emotions are actually hers. A small group of girls excitedly asks if Leona is all right. They say that the girl almost died this time and seem to mention that she drank poisoned tea at a party. The group comments that it is a great stroke of luck to have the Grand Duke on their side. They say that if it weren't for him, Leona would have been dead long ago. The girls turn around and say that it is all because of their wicked friend. Roberta sees the angry stares directed at her in front of her. Suddenly, she opens her eyes and stares at the ceiling in shock, realizing it was just a dream. The maid approaches her, noticing that the lady has finally woken up. The girl informs her that His Excellency is already waiting for her downstairs. Indeed, something crazy happened between them last night. This happened after Gerald promised to help her ensure that she was truly real. Then she stood up, looked him in the eyes, simultaneously processing all her thoughts. The girl suddenly grabbed the boy in front of her by the shirt, pulled him towards her, and kissed him. Gerald did not push her away, and over time everything went too far. Roberta suddenly starts screaming that she has gone mad, after which she starts wondering why she did this. After getting dressed and walking down the hall, she thinks about how absurd this is. She realizes that she slept with the main character while being a villainess. A boy was waiting for her at the table and told her he wanted to wait until she woke up, but that he had too much to do. The girl could not even imagine what would happen to her, because no matter what she had done in her previous 19 lives, she was always falsely accused and murdered. She assumes that in this life, she will die again from an absurd false accusation, but she does not reject the idea that she has found a way to survive. Still, she was not sure if she should try to keep the Duke away. Gerald, suddenly smiling, notices that this dress suits her well. He says he chose it carefully, and Sorori gave him good advice. The boy reveals that he actually wanted her to choose, but didn't want to wake her up, and then asks her if she likes it. She understood that this decision could not be made impulsively, because it could become her path to survival, or the prelude to an even more terrible path. The girl decides that she shouldn't get ahead of herself yet, and that there absolutely won't be any romantic atmosphere now. She suddenly declares that she is not really interested in dresses and things like that. Roberta reveals that she doesn't like noise and prefers to stay home, so she isn't interested in going out dresses. After which the Duke comments that he thought she was having fun yesterday. When asked what she likes, she says she prefers things that cannot be obtained with wealth or power. She says she enjoys positive thinking, simplicity, and physical and mental health. The boy recalls the events of the previous day and thinks it seems like she likes luxury. pleasure, excessive alcohol consumption, and self-destruction. Roberta begs him not to try to lure her with power and wealth by giving her land or seas. She apologizes mentally to those present and realizes she will have to keep talking nonsense. The girl says this will make the animals living with her unhappy. She asks what is on the menu today and says the appearance of the dish might give her an energy boost. Roberta understands that she needs to buy time with empty talk until they disperse. Gerald informs her that it is bread made with freshly squeezed milk and sea turtle soup. An awkward silence ensues, and the boy covers his mouth with his hand, holding back laughter. The girl looks at him indignantly, astonished by this coincidence. He withdraws his hand, after which a smile appears on his face, and Roberta doesn't understand why the atmosphere has improved. The boy asks if he can prepare a dress for her for the next ball if she isn't interested in them. Just in case, he asks her again if she is interested in choosing a dress. Suddenly, he suggests that she doesn't like Sir Ori's taste, and the assistant's heart almost stops from the surprise. Suddenly, she screams that she loves his taste, and the boy concludes that she will attend the next ball. He adds that she will have to attend there, accompanied by her company. Returning home in the carriage, she realizes she agreed to the next meeting without thinking. The girl asks Sir Ori to tell the Duke that she will not be able to attend the next ball due to unforeseen circumstances. But he rejects her. As expected of the main character, the boy was very good at flirting with girls. She recalls the events of last night and how tears slowly welled up in her eyes. Then the boy, worried, asked her why she was crying, looming over her. Roberta sighs, dying of shame and covering her face with her hands. She decides that perhaps he is not as heartless as she thought. The girl understood that maybe, this time she would have the chance to survive. Suddenly, the carriage stops and Roberta falls onto the poor Sir Ori. She asks what is wrong and he says something must have happened. Outside, an angry and unfortunate old woman can be heard calling out. The coachman asks her if she really doesn't know how many accidents happen on the roads when it rains. He angrily wonders why she can't just get out of the way. The man grabs the poor old woman by her cloak and asks if she knows whose carriage this is. Next to one of the guards, they start pushing the woman back and forth. Seeing this sight, Roberta remembers how she was falsely accused of killing Leona. She mutters to herself that now the boy will be polite, but as soon as he loses the Grand Duke's favor, he will end her life in the same way. She tells Sir Ori that she will come here, but he informs her that he has been ordered to escort her home safely and directly save to her home. She turns around and throws her exasperatedly angry look at him. The girl asks him if he wants to tell her that, in order to protect a young lady, whom the Grand Duke is slightly partial to, they are harming a harmless and fragile old woman. Roberta angrily says that there are things in the world that cannot be done no matter how much money and power one has. Closing the door, she quickly runs toward the innocent woman behind her. As the carriage drives away, she finally turns to the frightened old woman. She reports that the carriage is gone and then asks if she is all right. The woman suddenly realizes that she is a very compassionate young lady. She adds that perhaps the girl is the most compassionate of all. The old woman asks her if she wants her to predict her future. The woman suddenly says that this is undoubtedly the 20th life of her interlocutor. Roberta looks at her surprised, not understanding how she found out about her rebirth. She steps back a little and fearfully asks how she managed to realize this. The old woman says that if the girl doesn't put everything in its place in her 20th life, the world will be destroyed. She urgently asks the utterly confused Roberta to remember her words. The girl worriedly asks if Leona's misfortune world will be destroyed. Coming to her senses, she realizes that the old woman is no longer in the same spot where she was before. Suddenly, a loud familiar scream is heard nearby, distracting her from her thoughts. It was Claire, Roberta's personal maid, terribly agitated. The running woman asks why the girl came only now, after which she reports that she was very worried about her whereabouts. Roberta apologizes, and the maid is surprised that she is apologizing to her. Claire says that Lady Diamond has been waiting for her since morning, and that she is also very worried. She really insists that her beloved hurry home. Suddenly, Roberta stops her and tells her she wants to ask her something because she knows she likes novels. She wonders what it means, in her opinion, that the book world will be destroyed. Claire asks, surprised, if this means the main characters will die. Suddenly, a soft, familiar voice is heard, calling one of the girls. Someone's bandaged hand slowly rises, attempting to wave. Wounded Leona worriedly asks what has delayed her friend so much. Suddenly, a black horse rushes past her at breakneck speed. The maid and Roberta look fearfully at what happened, still not fully understanding what is happening around them. Leona, having no time to understand anything, smiles and looks inquisitively at those who just arrived. She says she was worried. Then she turns around and sees the same horse already turning back towards her. Roberta suddenly runs towards her friend. Shouting worriedly, she sees Lady Diamond in front of her, with black horses rushing towards her at high speed. Blood is splattered on the asphalt, and Roberta looks fearfully at the scene. People begin to gather around, asking what is happening here. The girl runs to her friend, while passers-by wonder why the horses suddenly went mad. Roberta asks the surprised girl if she is all right. Leona fearfully turns to her friend, trying to find words. Suddenly she falls to her knees and begs her to help. The girl admits that she actually had strange sensations since last night. She was walking calmly down the street, when suddenly a huge statue crashed right next to her. This left a scratch on her cheek, but fortunately it wasn't very deep. The maids immediately ran to her and asked if everything was all right. After a while, Leona lay calmly in bed, trying to fall asleep. She noticed something very bright and terrible and assumed it was a typhoon. Suddenly, the glass shatters and all the pieces fall on top of her. In the morning, she was informed that even after checking the estate's security, everything was fine outside, and besides, there was no typhoon last night. That same day, the maid suggested that she stay home because everything was too strange and sinister. Leona asked the maid not to worry and told her she would come back safe and sound. She smiled a little sadly and promised this to her interlocutor. Claire and Roberta suddenly start shouting at her that they know this phrase, and the main character of the novel says it before dying, because of which she almost really died. They excitedly ask the girl, who understands nothing, to go home immediately. Leona reports that all are injuries received from the house, and Roberta realizes that the problem is not at all in the place. The girl suddenly becomes sad, thinking about what is happening to her now. She says that she actually ran away from home in the morning because she was very scared. But it turned out that this also happens outside. Suddenly, Leona excitedly asks if her friend thinks she is cursed. Roberta fearfully looks at her equally worried interlocutor. Each of them asked an important question about what they should do now. Bernadette remembers the old woman's words that if she doesn't put everything in its place in her 20th life, the world will be destroyed. She understands that she must drive the Duke away at all costs. Roberta suddenly asks her friend how she would react if she suddenly told her she has a soulmate. She says that before meeting her, this soulmate made the mistake of sleeping with her friend. The girl reports that as soon as she meets her friend, she will forget who she slept with. As it gets dark, Leona suddenly says that this sounds extremely disgusting. Roberta fearfully asks why, because it only happened once and then before meeting her. She wonders what happens if this man loves her incredibly, and if she tells him that if she doesn't get together with him, she will die. She asks him if he means she has to date a man she doesn't love in order to stay alive. Leona asks how the man feels, realizing she is being used, how her friend feels when she looks at them, and how she would feel. She sadly says that people's hearts cannot be used this way. Diamond asks with interest what kind of romance novel this is, and Claire picks up the idea with this question. Roberta does not answer her question. I delve deeper and deeper into my thoughts. She remembers how, in one of her past lives, Leona secretly came to her without telling the Duke. The girl wanted at least one look from her friend, but was only ignored. Roberta asked her friend to leave and told her she shouldn't contact her because it was dangerous. She said she was a sinner who tried to kill Leona and suddenly screamed that she knew it wasn't true. Tears began to well up in her eyes, and she insisted that this was not the case. Roberta suddenly says that she didn't think she was easy to convince. She understands that something must be done, and she must not find out what happened last night. Leona suddenly asks if her friend is worried about her now. A little surprised, the girl says that of course she is. After hearing the answer to her question, she starts to look quite happy. At first, Roberta is surprised by this, but then she understands why her friend is so surprised. Before, in her friend's eyes, Roberta was exasperatingly majestic and strict. Claire suddenly says that she looked at the girl in a completely new way, and before she seemed like a villainess. But she was wrong. Roberta confidently says that she was very worried, and that is why she is telling Leona this. She asks her friend not to get involved with the noble girls of the Newton Empire. The interlocutor asks why she says that, and Roberta bites her lip. It was the group that framed Leona, along with the villainous Roberta. But more than that, They were the most arrogant people in the empire. She understood that if she could erase them from Leona's life, then her friend wouldn't know anything. Ryberta gently strokes her friend's cheeks and talks to her. She asks her not to get involved in useless gossip and rumors when it comes to relationships. Suddenly, Bernadette's happy family appears at the main door. The father calls his daughter the hope of their family and a little flower, after which he starts talking about how yesterday he was at the ball with Grand Duke Cygnus. Suddenly, Roberta asks if the interlocutor heard her, after which she again asks not to get involved in gossip and useless rumors. She confidently says that this applies even to someone's parents. The man says that at first he believed his daughter, but she reveals that the Grand Duke simply helped her a little at the ball. The girl insists that he really helped her, and only a little. She realizes she was too careless because, after all, many people saw her at the ball with the Grand Duke. Leona asks what her friend is talking about, but she just says it's of no importance. Suddenly, Roberta announces that she will go shopping with her friend to choose a dress for the next graduation ball. On the way, the girl tells Leona that she got very drunk yesterday. She says she almost fell, but the Duke helped her as he passed by, after which they parted ways. As soon as they left the ball, the girl reports that that was all and nothing more, mentally thinking that everything is fine, and that she will manage. Roberta knew and understood that everyone saw how Gerald helped her at the ball. The parents, left alone, talked about how maybe it was time for their daughter to get married. Even though she said they just helped her, the woman tries to convince him that there is nothing special about this, but the father confidently denies her words. Yesterday, a group of young people were gossiping that Ryberta called the Duke a man who looked like he wouldn't lose a drop of blood if stabbed with a knife. One of them suddenly said that something happened to Gerald and the family's daughter, Bernadette, in the backyard fountain. Suddenly, Ryberta's father ran up to him and asked him to tell him everything he knew. The boy was very scared, so he couldn't keep quiet. He admitted that the man's daughter was with Gerald Cygnus yesterday. The father's cheeks suddenly flushed, and he looked at the narrator with admiration. The man tells his wife the story and says that in social circles the news has already spread like wildfire, and all the young heirs of all families are turning their attention to Roberta, saying that she is the woman who seduced the Grand Duke. She would be incredibly happy that her daughter finally chose a boyfriend for her, despite her character. Suddenly, the woman jokingly asks if it is possible that the Grand Duke will become her son-in-law. They smile, and the father says this will never happen. He reports that he cannot even imagine that Grand Duke Cygnus could be his son-in-law. Gerald slowly walks through the admiring crowd who watch his every move. The boy realizes that it seems the news from last night instantly spread in social circles. Sorori says that maybe someone was following them and asks what they were doing in the open space. The Duke says he was careless and shouldn't have done it, so they need to find a way to resolve it. The guy suddenly, threateningly, declares that in the near future he will visit the Marquis and the Marchioness Bernadette and will tell them personally that the rumors are lies. Sorori suddenly wonders why he should say this if it's not a lie. Gerald sadly looks at his subordinate and asks if he too believes those ridiculous rumors about him being a heartless man and colder than ice. Ori looks at him surprised, amazed that he has been talking about this all along. The girls notice that this dress suits her incredibly well and that the length is perfect. Leona, the servants, and the salesman look admiringly at the beautiful girl. They tell Roberta that she looks incredibly beautiful, especially in this dress. Her friend asks why she didn't buy a formal dress, and the girl realizes she couldn't wear the dress Grand Duke Cygnus gifted her in front of her. The saleswoman says she will carefully pack the dress the girl originally wore in the store. Roberta suddenly menacingly says to throw away the dress she wore in the store. The girl, slightly embarrassed, asks if all this is too much. The servants ask her to try it on, after which she will definitely change her mind, because the outfit will suit her perfectly for her fairy tale look. They say she has excellent taste, and Roberta says she already knows that. Leona, after trying on her outfit, says she only wanted to stay on the sidelines at the ball, but somehow this is too much. Her friend tells her this is her first meeting with the Grand Duke, so she must come to her senses and understand that this is an important event. The girl, embarrassed, asks what she is talking about now. She states that she really doesn't care at all whether he is a Grand Duke or not. Roberta recalls the night Gerald told her he didn't want to know about anyone else, and now he only wants to hear her story. She asked with interest who Roberta Bernadette was. The girl declares that her friend will change her mind as soon as they meet. Suddenly, Leona reveals that she has already met him. She reveals that at the ball, she heard that the handsome and powerful Grand Duke had returned to the Newton Empire. So she wanted to meet him in person. That day, she accidentally bumped into him, so she immediately apologized to him. Then red, bright, and burning eyes looked at her with incredible coldness. She knew that anyone would say he was the Duke based on the rumors, and it would be difficult to find a man with a better physique or a more beautiful face. Leona says that despite this, she doesn't want to date a person who has such cold eyes. And terrifying, she reports that anyone can confirm that he is actually a very terrifying person, and cold-blooded who hasn't shed a drop of blood or tears. Ryberta excitedly asks if she has already seen him. Her friend says it happened, but only for a moment, and that she didn't want to do anything to him. Suddenly, the glass not far from the girls shatters into 1,000 tiny fragments. Ryberta instantly runs to her friend and screams her name. Leona looks at her surprised, still not understanding what just happened. She finally realizes, is horrified, and stares into the distance in shock. Suddenly, the girl declares that this is definitely a real curse. Hearing this, Ryberta says that after the ball, everything will finally get better. Fearfully, she takes her friend by the shoulders, as if trying to bring her back to reality. The girl states that the Grand Duke is not as bad as they say about him. She says that he has another side that is not widely known. Ryberta says he is a kind man who helped a drunk girl get home. That day, according to his own accounts, he even listened to her drunken ravings. The boy also calmed a man who was crying for no apparent reason. She says the Duke is the type who doesn't pass by someone in trouble. Roberta confidently states that one should not rush to judge someone. Leona looks at her thoughtfully, as if finally grasping the whole point. Suddenly she asks what's wrong, which greatly surprises her friend. They glance at each other, not even knowing how to continue the dialogue. Suddenly a girl appears at the door, asking if Roberta is bragging. Leona cheerfully shouts the name Paley Eiley, not expecting to see her at all. In Leona's misfortunes, the girl was the one who, along with Ryberta, got the main character into trouble. In Ryberta's 19th life, she constantly rejected her, even though she committed countless misdeeds. Suddenly, the girls start gathering, happy that Easley has come for the first time since the boutique opened. Ryberta understands that among young ladies, the girl always has real power thanks to her parents, who own the largest wine business in the empire, and, ultimately, she was a dangerous person who was better not to talk to. Suddenly, Illy asks why Ryberta is silent, because she asked her if she was bragging. The girl begins to say that the one sitting there spent the night with Grand Duke Cygnus, when suddenly her mouth is covered with the palm of a hand. Ryberta excitedly asks if they can talk in a slightly different place. She takes the girl to another room while wondering what is happening. The door and windows of the room were closed, providing some security. For Ryberta, the time has finally come to be able to shut the girl's mouth. Bernadette says that it is all a big misunderstanding and nothing more. She states that it doesn't matter what the girl heard from other people. Ryberta, distressed, says that it's all a misunderstanding, repeating it once and again. Easley screams that she knew the person opposite was crazy. The trapped girl pushes the surprised one and nervously asks her to stop. She asks Roberta to tell her everything in detail because she personally saw it. Easley says she saw her with the Grand Duke by the fountain yesterday. Roberta excitedly wonders what she could have seen. Bernadette says she drank too much and that's why she made a mistake, after which, of course, she immediately apologized to him. The girl pretends that nothing happened between them that night, and Roberta asks why the Grand Duke would do such a thing. Easley, angry, says that of course, that's how it's supposed to be. She suggests pretending nothing happened, even if there was something. Suddenly, the girl points to the marks on the opponent's neck and says they shouldn't be there. Easley says she should start telling the truth instead of trying to lie to her, because she can do more than she thinks. Suddenly, she declares that she has to leave, after which she opens the door and leaves. Roberta looks at her questioningly, not understanding who she thinks she is. Meanwhile, Easley walked somewhere discontentedly, thinking about how she dared. The girl, very angry, mentally calls Roberta a damned girl. In fact, that night, she saw even more than the situation at the fountain, because she was standing behind a tree. She suddenly decides that none of this happened because they drank too much and hallucinated. Meanwhile, the maids talk about how they cannot hear the dialogue taking place in the other room. One of them addresses Leona and asks if she knows anything, if they are friends. Leona states that she will pretend not to know anything until Ryberta tells her herself. One of the maids says she cannot believe the girl is hiding this. Leona smilingly recounts that Ryberta is quite shy. Meanwhile, the girl, sitting in that same room, hopes that the one who left will not tell her friend everything. Very soon, she realizes that she was too self-confident and careless. The girl slowly walks down the stairs, when suddenly she sees the Duke in front of her, who says he had no news from her, so he decided to come. A blush and strong confusion suddenly appear on her face. She opens her mouth wide in surprise. She closes the door behind her, returns to the room, and Claire suddenly says that the Grand Duke has arrived, that he is madly in love with the lady. The maid says that her lordship ordered her to dress elegantly and accompany her downstairs, and the girl asks him why she should dress elegantly in her own home. She suddenly says that this guy's clothes are too strange today. A few days ago, Sir Ori prevented the Duke from visiting Bernadette. Gerald was not happy about this, because he wanted to quell the rumors that he had no heart as soon as possible. Then the subordinate said that he always stood out, let's say, for his charisma. He said he thought he needed to show a completely different side and start with a kind smile. The man said there is a saying that one should not spit on a smiling face, after which he advised the knight a couple of things. His first piece of advice was that first impressions are very important, and the Duke, upon approaching Bernadette's family, apologizes for coming unannounced, with glasses hiding his piercing eyes and an elegant gray suit. The father says it is an honor to meet the Grand Duke. The mother notices that, contrary to the rumors, he is a very handsome and elegant man. They say they cannot believe he came all this way because he missed his daughter, and he replies that he always wanted to come to the place where Roberta was born. The second piece of advice was to start by initiating a conversation on a general topic. For example, the history of Lady Bernadette, and the boy asks what his daughter was like as a child. The parents begin to worry and stutter, not even knowing what to say. Ryberta, whom her parents knew, told her maids to bark like dogs all day because they dropped her precious things, thinking it was a suitable punishment. The head of the family says that Ryberta loves dogs and is a lovely lady who loves animals. He reveals that he thought she wanted a dog-like man who would listen to her and eat well. He then corrects his previous words to say that she was simply thinking of bringing home a cute puppy-like man. Suddenly they say they are just joking, feeling too much excitement. The Duke believes that the reason for the girl's hesitation is that he doesn't look like a puppy. He suddenly says he is very sorry that he doesn't look like a puppy, which surprises his mother. The boy adds that he is sure that Bernadette's estate is an ideal place where children and dogs can have fun. He says that when he arrived, he found the estate very sunny and lively. Gerald comments that he regrets not being able to see Roberta as a child, so he suddenly wants to know more about this place. The third piece of advice was to show interest by asking questions, which ultimately pleased the head of the family very much. The Duke points out that the estate was built 20 years before his daughter was born, and then asks what her plans are for the next 20 years. Her parents suddenly look at him in shock, realizing they were unprepared for such a question. Meanwhile, the maid finished dressing Roberta, realizing that the young lady's future depended on her. To further charm the love-struck Grand Duke, she made the look sophisticated and natural. At first glance, the outfit may seem modest, but a lot of effort actually went into it. Roberta suddenly realizes that the maid did a great job. The girl suddenly changes her expression and realizes that she needs to get rid of this useless thought that distracts her. In Leona's world, she was simply a supporting character, a villainess. She could only walk down the stairs and resolutely refuse the boy's proposal. She needed to do this to ensure he would never look for her again. The girl finally walks down the stairs and realizes that everything will be easy only after talking to her parents. Suddenly, she sees in front of her how her father declares that if the boy believes him, his wealth will increase even more. The man asks the Duke to just look at his immediate plans. From the outside, it looked as if their roles were reversed, and the Duke was a father who did not want to marry his daughter to a poor man. The fourth piece of advice was that the Duke should praise her parents when he hears the story. When suddenly, the boy says that only an optimist without a plan can believe that such investments will make him rich. And this is commendable, although naive. Suddenly, Roberta takes the Duke's hand and asks him to stop, after which she drags him away. The girl, angry, asks him why he came here in the first place. She says she wants to be as frank as possible with him when she is suddenly interrupted. The boy asks her if she is irresponsibly and shamelessly trying to suggest that they pretend what happened between them last night never happened. He says he is sure that her bright and positive parents, whom he just spoke to, did not raise her to be so shameless. And the girl understands that she could still talk to her parents. Roberta asks him to allow her to introduce him to her friend, who, in her opinion, is much nicer and prettier than her. The boy asks her if she will be someone's girlfriend again. He admits that he actually thought a lot about her words that same day. What bothered him was that she wasn't sure if those were her feelings and emotions. It made him wonder if she felt unreal, and if there was a gap between who she was and who others saw. He supposed that she couldn't talk about her experiences with anyone else. The girl looks at him with some hope, feeling as if at least someone understood her after so long. She wondered why he was so perceptive. She asks with interest if the boy has always been like this. The Duke says he is someone who recently entered her life, and that this life has been very stagnant. He reveals that he is the one who wants to build a new relationship with her. The boy adds that he is also the one she needs most now. He asks her if she can tell him why she is so worried. The Duke says perhaps he can help her with something. The boy adds that at least now, he sees the girl Roberta Bernadette in front of him. He says that she is a girl and not a character from a book. Suddenly, the father bursts into the dialogue and says that he has finally found the way. He asks the Duke to take a look, because he managed to rework the plan to attract investments, after which he asks him to have tea together and discuss it. Gerald says he has to leave after politely apologizing. Finally, the boy tells his interlocutor that he will wait if she needs time, and that she can tell him whenever she wants. He is about to say something else when suddenly, the head of the family sneezes on him. The man apologizes, then wonders why he sneezed, when suddenly a bark is heard. The guy asks the dog to be a little quieter, because this isn't even his house. Suddenly, his father's cheerful voice is heard asking if it is Adrian. The boy turns around and sees the happy Marquis Bernadette in front of him. The parents immediately run to the young man, while Roberta and the Duke step aside. Gerald asks who it is, and she says she has no idea. Roberta suddenly notices that he looks like a puppy, and the boy looks at her indignantly, recalling the information he recently received. Adrian recounts that he met a stray dog, and when he fed it, it started following him. After which he apologized to his father for bringing the dog home, even though the older one is allergic. The head of the family says it's fine, when suddenly he sneezes again. The boy suddenly sees a little girl in the distance and joyfully calls her a beautiful lady. Little Roberta. Gerald takes off his glasses and suddenly announces that he has changed his mind. He menacingly says that he decided to stay with them for tea. The father is very happy with this news and invites everyone to talk. Roberta, meanwhile, wonders why everything is getting more and more complicated. Everyone sits down at a small tea table, forming a circle of people. The girl asks if they mean that Adrian Watford is a close friend of her brother Oliver. The man asks her how she doesn't remember him following her like a shadow when she was a child. But his wife says it makes sense because she was only 5 years old then. Roberta thinks he seems quite calm, but she has doubts because it's complete nonsense. Gerald suddenly says he calls her by her name like a good friend, but they are not actually that close. And it is an honor for him to meet him, although he hasn't even met Roberta's brother. While trying to fend off some attack, Adrian says he is honored that His Excellency is happy to meet him. The head of the family intervenes in their dialogue and recalls that the Duke mentioned he was interested in learning about the girl's childhood, after which he reports that his brother's friend knows everything. Adrian reveals that before leaving abroad, they did many things with Roberta. Suddenly, they interrupt him, and he says he can recall his memories with her. The boy says he greatly misses the old days looking at the Duke. He says the girl was a hooligan, and that such people are called true insolents. Then she continued behaving like that, although she got into a lot of trouble. Looking at her then, Oliver asked what was up with her rebellious expression. Her brother noticed that she had already ruined the garden countless times. And not only that, she also inserted fragrant flowers into the coat of the lioness dog. Oliver said he took and tortured his friend's dog without permission. Adrian defended the girl and asked him to drop it all, because apparently she only wanted to decorate the dog. The boy asked how the girl knew that dogs have a good sense of smell. Hearing this, little Roberta burst into tears and threw herself into Adrian's arms. She said she hated her brother and that she would marry his friend. Concluding the story, the boy says that she was so sweet that he couldn't hate her. Although she looks the same now, he realizes she is sad because she forgot she promised to marry him. The girl suddenly says it's not that she forgot everything. In fact, she was a completely different person, but she couldn't explain it. Suddenly, Gerald looks sadly at his satisfied narrator. He asks what he is talking about, if Roberta is completely different now. The Duke says she has become a girl who prioritizes physical and mental health, in addition to nature. He reports that for today's girl, decorating dogs and rebelling is unimaginable. Gerald looks at Roberta smiling and asks her if that is true. He asks her to answer directly, while she mentally calls him an idiot. The boy also notices that he corners the girl as if she accepts him, talking about what happened when she was only 5 years old, which is not very gentlemanly. Hearing this, Roberta mentally dreamed that he would finally stop. She had no idea why they were fighting amongst themselves now. Roberta prayed for someone to do something about this awkward situation. Suddenly, Sir Ori arrives and says it is time for His Excellency to leave. Getting up from the table, Gerald apologizes, after which he says he regrets not being able to stay until the end. Roberta, for her part, wholeheartedly thanked Sir Ori mentally, who had just saved the whole situation. She felt relieved and realized she could finally take a break from all this. As they said goodbye, Gerald tenderly kisses her hand before leaving. The parents look at this basket with admiration, dead with emotion. He suddenly wonders if the girl remembers the words she said recently. He then said that it was he who burst into her established life. He wants to have a relationship with her, and he is the one she needs right now. The boy said he was here to help her with all this. The girl looks at the smiling boy and wonders how he can help her. After a while, Roberta tells Adrian that all she had were confused thoughts. She apologizes for her behavior and says she is incredibly upset. In the end, after the Duke left, they continued having tea. Somehow, after a while, it suddenly turned into an elaborate dinner. Then she was sent for a walk with a man she had never seen before. This was a man who had never appeared in the previous 19 lives. Considering that she did not read about him in the novel, he must appear after Roberta's death. Judging by his appearance, she assumed he was a minor male character. The girl asks him if he remembers Leona, and the boy asks her if she means her friend. He supposed that this character was closer to Roberta than to Leon. The girl suddenly thought that returning from studying abroad must not be easy, only to find out that her beloved little sister was dead. Adrian suddenly asks if he can ask his question too. He wonders what kind of relationship she has with the Grand Duke, because they seem quite close. The girl says quite calmly that they have no relationship. She understood that no matter what he did or said, he could not influence her life in any way. Still, he is the main male character of the work. And in the end, it will be he who will kill her, which is surely already close. Adrian suddenly approaches the girl and takes her hand after hearing the answer. He enthusiastically asks if that means he still has a chance. The boy apologized in advance, just in case, for making her life difficult. Adrian, smiling, suddenly asks her if she likes sweets. Roberta imagines a scene of them walking together when they were little, while Leona watches them from afar. She realizes that the guy who looks like a secondary male character is actually on the side of the villainous Roberta Bernadette. Meanwhile, Leona sees an image where a guy says he doesn't understand what kind of betrayal people are talking about. Apparently, he was about to be arrested while his wife nervously watched the process, and she realized she couldn't do anything. Suddenly, Leona says it's all her fault, while the maid looks at her questioningly. The girl reports that lately failures have been haunting her, as if something wants her dead. After a while, Roberta states that she must say that it is only prejudice. She earnestly asks her frightened friend not to believe such things. Bernadette looks at her very sadly and asks her to make her a promise. This morning, the girl had a very hard day. Roberta quickly ran upstairs, screaming her friend's name. Leona asked what all this enthusiasm since the morning was about, and said that she should be the one asking this. She wonders if the Alma's family hotel is a rebel hideout. One of the hotels managed by her father turns out to be a rebel hideout. Fortunately, the father who was arrested last night was released. This happened only after they believed he had nothing to do with it. Roberta says it's a relief, but her friend suddenly denies it. Leona reports that an article in the morning newspaper called her father's hotel a rebel hideout. She asks if what has been happening to her lately is not too strange. The girl says it's as if a demon who holds a grudge against her and tries to destroy her future has appeared. All this time, she seemed to be tormented by a variety of misfortunes. Wherever she goes, glasses break or she falls and gets hurt. She constantly wondered at what point everything went downhill. She says she suddenly realized and found a way to regain her quiet life. It was as if someone had deliberately whispered the answer to her. Ryberta is asked if she has figured out how to return to normal life. She asks how she did it, when suddenly a piece of paper appears in front of her. It was an advertisement for a fortune teller, and Leona said that this woman was very popular. Ryberta stares at her dumbfounded, not expecting such an outcome at all. After a while, they are already standing near the fortune teller's house, and Ryberta says her friend is not brave at all, because she just saw the advertisement and immediately caught fire. She replies that in that case she will go with her, and Bernadette says she was so serious that she couldn't leave her. Roberta says that her friend will have her money taken away, be ostracized from society, and they will end up destitute. Leona suddenly says she completely understands how stupid this is. She says she feels like she's on a dead-end death wheel and feels powerless. The girl admits that she feels like she will go crazy if she doesn't do anything. Ryberta says she knows and has been through it, to which she only receives an inquisitive look. The girl did not go into detail, and taking Leona's hand, led her into the house. She says in a low voice that, after all, they should go together and that she will not leave her friend. Bernadette points out that if the fortune teller tries to take even a little money from her, or does something, they will leave immediately. After this, she confidently asks the person following her not to let go of her hand. The girl says that she must always be persistent, no matter what. She adds that she does not want to see her succumb to someone's ill intentions, even for a second. The fortune teller, seeing her visitors, calls them girls who shouldn't be here. Leona happily wishes her good day, smiling sweetly while her friend stares at the old woman in shock. She suddenly points her finger at the woman and says that it was her. She asks if she remembers her, because they met before and talked after the girl drove from the Duke, and got out of the carriage to help the old woman. The fortune teller says she is not very sure if she remembers anything. She comments mysteriously that her friend should finally find out everything. The old woman recounts that in recent days, her life has not been going well, and this is because someone stole her destiny. She adds that, on the other hand, it seems that a new destiny awaits her friend. The fortune teller approaches Ryberta and tells her that this destiny is too big for her, a useless girl, and that she cannot cope with it. The woman pulls her by the collar while looking at her menacingly. The old woman says that if everything continues like this, something terrible will happen. Ryberta surprisingly asks what she means now. She wonders if the old woman knows everything about the destiny that awaits them. Suddenly, Leona realizes that her friend is too interested in the fortune teller's stories. She asks her to pull herself together and tells her that something terrible will happen if she gets too obsessed with the fortune teller's words. The woman says that is all she can say, then hands them the jewels and asks them to accept them. She asks to leave the jewels on her side, because that way she can stop the failures. The fortune teller approaches Roberta and tells her that she herself must know that everyone creates their own destiny with their own hands. She reports that, instead of reversing the change of destiny, she should act more carefully than now for the sake of her poor friend. Suddenly, Leona aggressively hits the table and asks the fortune teller to stop. The girl says she will pay for everything. She hands him the bill and asks him to take her money, not her friend's. She looks at the old woman again and asks her not to extort Roberta. The girl also says that she should not force her friend to do anything strange. Leona takes the girl's hand, who understands nothing, and decides it's time to leave here. Leaving the house, she says that this woman seems capable, but she should not trust her too much. She asks with interest what the old woman whispered to her then. Roberta was sure that the fortune teller knew something very well. She quietly repeats that she should be more careful. Roberta suddenly announces that she needs to go somewhere, which greatly surprises her friend. Fearfully, she says that she needs to appear at the ball like a comet and surprise everyone. Several days pass, and the long-awaited day of the score arrives. The girls comment that the lady is drinking as much as the last time. They suggested that perhaps she didn't notice these looks on her. The girls thought she was enjoying the attention, and that's why she came in that dress. The gathered boys look at the girl and admire her beauty. Suddenly, Easley approaches her and says she is glad to see she is doing well. The one who attracted the most attention from most people was still Leona Diamond. Easley reports that she was worried about her when she read the article in the newspaper, because there were terrible rumors that her father was involved with the rebels. The crowd asks if this is the reason why they say Leona looks terrible. But suddenly, they think that after all it's just a rumor. The girl says they never believed those rumors, and this is logical because they are friends. Leona suddenly asks cheerfully if it's true, beaming with happiness. She thanks Easley for believing in her, even when she heard such sinister rumors, which really touched her. Almaz says she heard there will be a more correct article about the false accusation against her father. The girl happily reports that she no longer falls, bumps into anything, or gets hurt. Suddenly, she realizes sadly that this does not mean that all her worries have disappeared. Suddenly, Leona turns around and sees a girl about to drink another glass. It was Roberta, and the girl thought her friend was behaving too strangely. Bernadette mysteriously suggests aloud that she should shudder at her bloody destiny. Eiley asks her what she is doing, and then says she knew she was gone. But not that much. She looked at her simple dress, asked what the dull yellow color was, and then associated it with egg custard. Leona remembers how her friend, after meeting a fortune teller, dragged her somewhere. Then they went to the clothing store, which confused the girl a little, because they had already chosen their outfits for the ball. Roberta suddenly said that she almost forgot because it was a long time ago. But when a boy falls in love with her, something wonderful will happen. In the piece, Leona had her hair floating in the air, red petals falling on her dress, and a sky blue dress like the sky on a clear day. In the novel, the Duke should not have been able to take his eyes off her at all. This whole event must have been like some kind of spell. For this moment, wherever she sees this color, she must think of Leon. This is exactly what happened in the novel, and no matter what happened last time at this ball, Roberta was going to make up for lost time. She knew that if Gerald saw the original scene, he wouldn't be able to take his eyes off the red petals. And Leona in the blue dress, and the color opposite to blue was actually yellow. Easley approaches the girl and says she thought only the Diamond family collapsed, after which she asks what is happening in Lady Bernadette's family. While finishing another glass, Roberta angrily looks at the woman opposite. Easley suddenly became confused and asked why she was so sad. According to the original, Roberta and these girls knew that Leona would attract Gerald's attention at this ball. It all started with the joint bullying of Leona. Roberta wanted her friend not to worry, so she was going to get rid of these annoying mosquitoes. Suddenly, she puts her hand on Easley's shoulder and asks one of the girls if they look like twins today, after which she explains that their dresses are very similar today. Paley indignantly asks what the yellow dress and her bright lemon-colored dress have in common. Bernadette asks her not to tell her that she doesn't know how much effort common people have to put in, and ordinary to dye fabrics. She says that His Excellency, whom everyone admires, hates those who despise common people. Easley threateningly says that she is in no position to talk about Gerald's preferences. Roberta suddenly says that she should already know that she already spent the night with him. Feeling very sad, Paley suddenly asks her to stop making those jokes. She says she already warned her, and Roberta sarcastically says she is very scared. The girl says she just wanted to have fun at night, and then asks if that means he is following her. She reveals that this is why she wore the yellow dress, which he hates. Suddenly, smiling, she says she cannot believe that Eiley was wearing such a similar dress. Upon leaving, Roberta asks her to remember that the Duke, whom she likes so much, hates the color yellow. In the end, she simply shouts happily that she successfully fooled her. The girls who have been close this whole time say she is truly crazy. They point out that poor Paley lost so easily to Roberta. The girls say she boasted so much about her family's wine business and acted like she was the best that. Frankly, she was starting to get on their nerves. Suddenly, a loud sound is heard, and rose petals begin to fall from above. Leona looks at this with admiration and lifts her head. Meanwhile, up high is the Grand Duke, looking at the girl and catching her gaze. She looks at him a little surprised, with her mouth slightly open in surprise. Her gaze also, though slightly, involuntarily focused on the girl. A couple of seconds before the incident, he was talking to a man who thanked him for his positive rating, and told him that, if he allowed it, he would like to tell him a little more about what he was working on now. Seeing that his interlocutor's gaze was fixed on something located on the ground floor, he called his listener. Looking down, the speaker saw the face of the girl looking at the Duke. Roberta understands that this is how fate put everything in its place. She drank another glass of alcohol, leaning against the railing. The next episode of the play was supposed to be a date in the park under the moonlight. The girl should have seen this in just a few seconds. She had already seen her friend standing in the street waiting for someone. She liked seeing how nervous Leona was waiting for the meeting. She knew it was time for her, as the villainess, to retreat carefully. Suddenly, a familiar voice is heard behind her telling her that she should be more careful. The boy suddenly snatches the glass from her hands and brings it to his lips. Without thinking for a second, he calmly begins to drink the remaining alcohol. It was His Excellency, who somehow appeared next to the girl. She asked him how he got here, and he said he saw her walking around here drunk. Roberta suddenly says she should have gone with Leona and not with her, because they looked each other in the eye. As fate was destined, the Duke looks at her inquisitively and says that he ran into a girl wearing a blue dress. At that moment, Almaz was looking up happily and waving energetically. Then Gerald showed indifference, not understanding whether they knew each other or not, but suddenly saw Adrian looking down with fascination. The boy says he probably called someone he knows, and then asks the girl to look outside. A boy dressed in a beautiful white suit suddenly approaches Leon. He looks closer and sees Adrian standing next to his friend. Growing gloomier, she asks what is wrong and what is happening now. The girl says this shouldn't have happened at all. The Duke looks at her and realizes that she is truly a strange girl. He remembered that Ori informed him that during the investigation, he found no record of Roberta Bernadette being involved in any accident. The man added that she does not have any physical illness. He then reported that Bernadette was apparently completely healthy. The last thing he said was that in some places she can be an absolutely unique person. Gerald realizes that she simply has her own problems that most people are unaware of. Sir Ori also told him that she likes bright dresses, so he worked hard to prepare one. But the problem is that he is not sure if the lady likes His Excellence. He said confidently that his master did not seem like a dog at all. Ori added that he found this unusual girl interesting and attractive. But in his opinion, it would be better to stay and look for someone else before things get serious. Gerald didn't want to admit it, but his subordinate was right. Unfortunately, he simply couldn't help but notice her gaze. The Duke watches as she scratches her already injured neck again. He takes her hand and tells her that he hoped she would greet him with a much more relaxed expression. The boy reminds her that he told her before that he could help her. The girl looks at him with eyes full of desperation and a kind of hope. Gerald noticed that she was often lost in her own thoughts and was always on guard. Roberta's friend says that not even His Excellency can always fix everything. He notices that now, he doesn't even know what she is thinking about. The Duke says that this is the reason why he is so worried and nervous. Besides that, he was incredibly excited about it. Smiling maliciously, the girl asks him if he is really having that much fun. He looks at her inquisitively and asks if she was working on it just for fun. The boy says that the dress she is wearing looks like it was made from a blanket he loved since childhood. And he doesn't believe she would have chosen that fabric if she hadn't been attached to it. The girl suddenly realizes that he has been pretending to be polite all this time. But he is terribly arrogant, and it is incredibly rude to insult someone else's taste. The Duke suddenly asks, annoyed, if this is exactly what she knows. He asks if this is the reason why she didn't wear the dress he sent her. That day, she cut his gift into 1,000 pieces. Then the girl answered the maid that she would never wear it under any circumstances. Gerald says that his closest assistant, Ori, said that he likes bright dresses. He says it's a shame, and he can't believe he has such an incompetent assistant. The girl realizes that she urgently needs to save poor Sir Ori. She found out that he got married and was expecting his first child next spring. The man says it's a shame that the breadwinner of a young family will soon be unemployed, although this is no longer his business. Roberta worriedly asks if he's going to fire him. She suddenly says that she couldn't wear it because she had gained weight. Bernadette reports that she is the queen of luxury, the embodiment of pretense and pride, but her waist has gotten bigger. She tugs the mantle at the departing Duke, when suddenly she notices something strange. The girl shouts that this is not at all what she wanted, when suddenly she begins to fall. Gerald quickly grabs her by the waist, and their faces stop a short distance from each other. Roberta blushes deeply, and the boy realizes that, as he thought, his subordinate misunderstood everything. He asks if this is a strong reaction for someone who said she wasn't his type. The boy notices that her waist still fits perfectly in his arms, and she asks him not to say strange things. Suddenly, the sound of breaking and falling glass is heard, and those in the street look up. Leona looks surprised, not understanding where the glass came from or why. There was a light on where they were looking, but there was not a single person. The girl suddenly realizes with joy that for the first time in recent years, she was not injured. Although someone broke her glass, she excitedly says that it is all thanks to her new bracelet. Meanwhile, Roberta and the Duke lay on the floor, looking into each other's eyes with embarrassment. The girl's face blushed more and more with every second. The Duke suddenly asks what kind of situation this is now. Roberta suddenly pushes him and asks what he is talking about. She apologizes and says that she should leave the balcony first. The next morning, the girl reads a letter from her friend, who apologizes for disappearing yesterday without saying a word. She wrote that she seemed too excited and walked for a long time, after which she noticed that the wind was terribly cold. The maid reported that a letter arrived from Lady Diamond this morning, and that it was a good thing they were on such good terms. Reading the letter, Roberta realized that she was the one who disappeared in the middle of the score. She understood that yesterday's project, where she was supposed to find her destiny, had failed completely. The girl began to recall the events of the previous day in a more sober state. The first reason she disappeared was that, unlike Roberta, who liked puppy-faced men, she had different tastes. She really liked guys like him, the Grand Duke. She suddenly starts shouting, wondering what will happen if she gets carried away by the moment. The maids start whispering that she has been behaving strangely lately. Although she has always been like this, they say she has always been arrogant, but now something seems to have confused her. When suddenly, a man's voice is heard behind them, asking if this is how lovers behave. He suddenly appears, says he was wondering what his little sister was up to. And now that she has grown up, he sees that she has achieved a lot. It was Oliver Bernadette, Roberta's brother, a diplomat who often goes on business trips. He says that while he was away, the Grand Duke became a topic of conversation in the Newton Empire, and then asks why they are looking at him like that. Roberta, who hadn't noticed her brother yet, suddenly hears Adrian's voice. Suddenly, she runs up to him and asks if he was with an incredibly beautiful girl yesterday. The girl thought everything would have gone well if he hadn't gone to the garden with Leona. Adrian looks at her inquisitively, not understanding at all what she is talking about. The girl takes him by the hand and tells him they need to leave, and then takes him away. The maid shouts at her that she hasn't seen the young master in a long time and doesn't even greet him, when suddenly the boy realizes that all this is a love triangle. And love affairs. Oliver says that since she was a child, his little sister had a talent for ruining and complicating things. He says that, when he was a child, he didn't understand this at all, but his opinion changed after a terribly boring daily job. The boy comments that this adorable mess is very exciting. Standing next to the boy, the girl understood that everything must be perfectly organized. She decided that she needed to think about her next step immediately. Bernadette knew that first she had to stop thinking about Gerald. Suddenly, Roberta says, doomed to failure, that all this is simply useless. She communicates what she thinks about the Grand Duke in such circumstances, which arouses the boy's interest. Suddenly, he hands her a candy, which greatly surprises her, because it was very unexpected. Adrian asks her if she wants some sweets and notices that she is lost in her thoughts again. Roberta stares at him dumbfounded, not expecting such an action at all. Dissatisfied, she unwraps the candy from its wrapper without taking her eyes off the person opposite. The girl reminded him that he had already said something similar last time. Adrian admits that the beautiful girl he met yesterday at the ball was Leona Almes. He says that she is the one the girl told him about, and that he was glad to see they still get along. The boy says that's all and he has no further information, after which he says he hopes she believes him. She agrees and says she has no doubts. The boy remembers that yesterday Leona told him about a bracelet that prevents all kinds of misfortunes. Then he smiled, which made her wonder why he was laughing. Immediately after this, the boy apologized and said that he simply thought she was cute. Adrian happily noticed that the girl hadn't changed at all since that day. He realized that he had forgotten many things and suddenly wondered if Roberta would allow him to feel this in the future. The boy said he felt as if memories of the past were slowly warming him. Roberta was not surprised that he told his friend's younger sister what happened during the encounter with the beautiful lady. Suddenly, she frowns at him as if she is extremely dissatisfied with something. She says she needs to know what will happen next. The girl hands him some candy and decides that today she will not rush and will let herself go. Suddenly, she asks the boy to give her some time a little later. She simply couldn't help but wonder what this guy was thinking. Suddenly, Adrian asks her if she is inviting him on a date. The boy eats candy, while the girl says his assumption is wrong. She reports that she would simply love to get to know him better. The girl asks him if he could go for a walk with her and chat a little. He suddenly asks in surprise if this is not a date. Sitting at the table opposite Roberta, he recounts that they walked quite a distance for a stroll. He remembers what he said earlier about being a little busy. Bernadette says that here they will go their separate ways. She will go with Leon and he will go to the office, and halfway they need to have a coffee. He decides that after Sweet lets her guard down, he will ask her about her progress with Leona. She suddenly realizes that most likely their mutual friend will be happy if they visit her together. She suddenly remembers that yesterday it was quite cold, which implies that perhaps she is not feeling well. Bernadette believes that this cunning fox tried to trick her innocent lioness. The boy suddenly wipes the cream off his lips and says that she hasn't changed at all since childhood. Roberta realizes that judging by his appearance and behavior, he has charmed hundreds of women. Suddenly, she asks what they were talking about and then wonders if they left with her. He reports that he and the girl talked specifically about Roberta and how she is often misunderstood, although she is cute, after which he accompanied Leona and heard about Bernadette again. Then a small group of girls whispered that the crazy woman was near. They said she was coming in a disgusting dress and that they wouldn't even use it as a cat litter box. Adrian reports that the aristocrats harshly criticized her after this. She suddenly wonders if Gerald really hates Yellow that much. She seriously asks why he was talking about him so suddenly. The girl says she doesn't know because, as he said, she has nothing in common with him. Adrian suddenly starts feeling embarrassed and covers his mouth with his hand, and his facial expression changes a lot. He looks away and says that now he can finally understand everything. Suddenly, he begins to talk about some of his deepest feelings. Adrian reports that the yellow dye is derived from an extract of Coban flowers, which only grows in high mountain regions, but due to recent diplomatic problems, supplies have become unstable and production has also dropped drastically. He says that she lied to the lady, saying that the Grand Duke is the most eligible bachelor who hates the color yellow. The boy says that this deception forced them to abandon their extravagant yellow outfits. He reports that this was exactly what everyone was talking about at the ball. Adrian looks at her with admiration, wondering who she really is. He wonders if her reputation has really changed so much, not really understanding what it is about. He quotes the Grand Duke's phrase that she is one of those who value inner well-being more and nature than external attractiveness. People start looking strangely at Bernadette and her brother's friend sitting opposite each other. He says she is like a heroine and has been this way since childhood. The boy realizes that she could never ignore the suffering of others, and he extended a hand to her. A long time ago when she was a girl, she worriedly asked Adrian why he was crying. The boy looked at the girl, who had just approached with tears in her eyes. She told him it was time for them to play together again, and then Adrian admitted he could no longer play with her. He said this might be the last time they see each other in person. The boy said his parents want to send him to study abroad. He didn't want to leave at all, but unfortunately nobody listened to him at all. Adrian said he can't even decide where he wants to go and feels like some kind of pet. Suddenly, the girl handed some sweets to her friend, so he would stop crying. He looked at her inquisitively, not quite understanding what was happening. The girl shared that this is her favorite cherry-flavored sweet. She promised him that, when he ate it, he would feel much better. The boy asked her if she thought he was a puppy, but she answered that he wasn't a dog, but her ideal husband. Then she asked him, as soon as he arrived from abroad, to marry her. Suddenly, the girl sees something in front of her and asks who it is. It was a stray dog, and Bernadette immediately realized that the animal was hungry. Roberta suddenly asks her interlocutor if he knows what dogs should eat. The boy looks at her fascinated, thinking about something of his own in the past. He remembered how the girl asked him not to forget her and promised to write to her. The maid asks if the young lady really sent a letter to Mr. Adrian when she was a girl. Oliver, without thinking, says this is practically impossible. This was because when his sister learned to write, he had already forgotten about her existence. Claire points out that it is quite an interesting love triangle. She says that her lover likes Grand Duke Cygnus, and although she says that is not true, the maid knows the truth. She suddenly announces that she is in a hurry today to meet the Grand Duke. The boy reads the title and says those tickets are now very hard to get. She says there is a way for everything, and Leona asked Lady Shrine's maid about this. Elram. Suddenly, a girl bursts into the room and asks what is happening here. The maid looks inquisitively at the newcomer and addresses her as Lady Grania. The one at the door suddenly shouts that the main character is trying to act without her. A little earlier, the woman told the man that Cygnus picked up Roberta at the ball. Her interlocutor suddenly realizes that she is very lucky with this. She justifies it by saying they have an incredibly good daughter. Grania asks why she has to listen to all this. Sadly and threateningly, she wonders why Gerald doesn't love her. The maid, hearing this, looks at her sadly, not understanding at all why she has to endure this. The girl reports that nothing good has happened since she read this book. Leona, sitting in her chair, suddenly notices it's starting to get colder. The maid suddenly tells her that her friend has come to see her. Ryberta suddenly declares that she came to the girl's aid. She extends both hands, which were holding some herbs and cookies. Adrian handed them over and thanked the girl for the wonderful time they spent. The boy said the herb would definitely help cope with a cold. He also asked her to tell Leona that he wishes her a speedy recovery. Finally, Adrian handed over the envelope and asked her to deliver the letter to the sick woman. Roberta asks her friend why she blushed so much while reading this letter. She wonders if he is trying to seduce her and if he is making her heart race. Suddenly, the girl notices tears in her friend's eyes and asks the reason. Suddenly, Leona sadly reports that, after all, it seems she was rejected. Roberta learns that it turns out it wasn't Adrian who was trying to charm her all this time. She finally discovers that Leona is the one interested in this guy. The girl shares that last night, she asked him to help her with a difficult book. She reports that he sent her this letter with a polite refusal. Ryberta notes that her friend, as always, falls in love with elegant guys like the last 19 times. Leona says it's more love than physical affection. She thinks about how incredibly touched she was by his kindness when she was a child. She remembers how Adrian, while leaving with Ryberta, looked around and saw her standing to the side. He politely asked if the girl wanted to go with them. The girl remembered how they used to sit together in the library when they were little, and Adriana read them a book. The boy looked at Roberta from time to time and laughed a little when he saw her. He carefully placed Bernadette's head on his shoulder, trying to do it as carefully as possible. He smiled and noted that she always fell asleep whenever he read. The boy turned around and said he was very happy that Leona was listening to him. The girl remembered his gentle hands, protecting the sleeping child from the sun's rays, and his warm smile, full of warmth. Leona admits she liked everything about him, while her friend wonders if such a thing ever happened. The narrator asks if her friend has ever felt something like this. The girl says that at that moment, she realizes that she has a weakness for this. During these 19 lives, Roberta was only dying, and there was no time for such things. The girl decided to mentally summarize all the information she had recently received. She described the boy as smart and good-natured, with a gentle voice. Roberta wonders if guys like that are even her type. Suddenly, an image appears in front of her, where a boy tells a girl that she needs to protect her skin from UV rays. And Bernadette thinks this is an advertisement, and that this scene was not in the original. For her, this was completely different from the real and familiar Duke. Leona says she would like to know why her friend has a weakness, and what kind of person she would fall in love with. She tells her that she doesn't have to do it if she feels uncomfortable. The girl asks her if she can tell her about this, and then says she hopes that day comes soon. Upon leaving her friend's room, Roberta spends some time trying to understand what is happening. Holding her head in her hands, her maid suddenly gets out of the carriage and says that the lady was out for a long time, so she came to look for her. Claire says that the girl promised they would watch a play together, and suddenly asks what's wrong with the hair. She reports that this is not at all appropriate, and then asks Roberta to come closer to her. Bernadette feels sorry for Leona, without understanding at all what she should do now. She analyzes all possible options, from changing the type of guys to replacing the Archduke. The girl wonders if they could fall in love even if they knew each other. Having arrived at the play, she sees the Grand Duke in front of her, asking what they are doing here. She says it's quite a long story, looking at him surprised. The girl sees his shirt, unbuttoned a couple of buttons, and tells him he shouldn't dress like that. She was embarrassed by how exposed his neck was, so she started buttoning his shirt. She asks him to be more careful, because in his appearance there should be more education and intelligence. The girl nervously tightens his tie, trying to put his appearance in order. Then she asks him to comb his hair to look neater. Suddenly, the Duke thanks her for her concern, which surprises her a little. The boy asks her if she is okay and takes her hand off his shoulder. Roberta looks at him inquisitively, not quite understanding what he means. The Duke wonders if she thinks they are giving everyone too much dopamine. He says he is more interested in what she is doing, and the girl says she is also interested. She asks him what he is doing here, and for what purpose he came to the play. Gerald reports that he came to see the performance, and that, as part of the festival, There will be an opera that will tell the life of Saint Owen, Rai. He says he specially booked all the seats in the theater, but still, 2 more people managed to take 2 seats, which apparently were her and her maid. Roberta sits down next to him and decides that, when the time comes, she will figure out a way to fix everything. She says that, as he said, he doesn't like crowded places because they are noisy. And then she asks him if he visits libraries often. The Duke says that sometimes he needs books that are not in his library, and lately he goes there often. He reports that this is to be expected because there are no books about pregnancy in the Cygnus family palace. Roberta stares at him dumbfounded, not understanding at all what he means. Gerald reports that he heard that Sir Ori's wife was sad because she rarely saw her busy husband. He says that's why he invited her to the show. According to him, creative works awaken emotions and can have a positive impact on the child. And on the woman herself, Roberta supposes that he was joking when he said he would kill Sir, to which he receives an affirmative answer. She suddenly realizes that he is actually much better than she thought. The Duke fearfully asks who she thought he was before. Previously, she thought he was a surprisingly caring and attentive person, but she didn't even consider the fact that he was good to absolutely everyone around him. Suddenly, she remembers how his executions, which he attended, normally were. Roberta puts a hand to her forehead and says that this is a great relief for her. She suddenly says that her suggestion to dress neatly was useless. The girl takes him by the tie and tells him he can wear whatever makes him feel comfortable. Bernadette tells him that, in fact, he is beautiful just the way he is. The boy first looks at her inquisitively, but then, smiling, thanks her. He says he is very happy that she has this opinion. It would have been a real relief for her, but she still wondered what kind of tricks fate was playing on her. Suddenly the performance begins, and a girl appears on stage. She says that she probably shouldn't have come here at all. Roberta looks at the man sitting next to her and realizes that he is truly a kind person. She understood that Leona would like a guy like that, and the story doesn't change at all. The girl remembered how Leona approached her and offered to run away. The accused said this made no sense because she would be caught anyway and executed. She said that this is exactly what happened in the last 18 attempts. The girl was afraid that if people found out, they would punish Leona. But the girl told her that everything would be fine because the Duke would take care of everything. Leona said that she knows she is a big problem and that she blames the boy because he is always there for those he cares about. She also thought about the other side, realizing that her friend's life was at stake. Roberta knew that whatever happened, Gerald would always protect his friend. For the girl, this was always a great relief. This may have made her happy, but it also made her jealous, which was truly a shame. While watching, Gerald occasionally looks at the woman sitting next to him. A girl on stage tells a boy that they can never be together. The actor says that even if she leaves him, he will always wait for her. He hands her the letter and asks if she will read and answer it. The girl says she will never answer his letter and then leaves. Gerald turns around again and looks at his temporary neighbor. In this story, a girl with a tragic fate was born, and she met a boy who wanted to help her, and she, attracted by his kindness and support, trusted him. In the end, she realized that her destiny was only in her hands and said goodbye to him. The boy sent a letter to his beloved who had left, but never received an answer. After the play ends, Gerald realizes that this is quite a stupid story, and that it has nothing good about it. He realizes that he had no need to book all the seats, and anyway nobody would have come. The guy had no idea who would want to see something like that. He turns his head and sees Roberta sitting with tears in her eyes. Gerald looks at her in shock, not expecting such a reaction to this play. The attendees say that this is a true work of art. The pregnant woman says that this is an impressive story about a progressive girl, and that she dreams that her daughter will be exactly like the main character. The Duke keeps looking at the woman sitting next to him and suddenly hands her a handkerchief. He points out that the play apparently impressed her. The girl says she regrets that he cannot share this pleasure with her. She justifies it by saying that she really liked it very much. Roberta says that at first, she thought it was just a matter of appearance. But as she says, the actions and words touched the depths of her soul. The girl understood that the words were meaningless, but she couldn't stop her heart from beating wildly. She remembers the scene where the girl says that she is the one who appeared in his stagnant life. When going out in search of new acquaintances, it turned out that she was the one he needed most. The Duke suddenly wonders if it is because the main character looks like a puppy. The boy notices that he acts like a child, says unrealistic and unfounded things, and is synonymous with the word incompetence. The girl suddenly says that this is probably her type. She reports that some people really enjoy listening to such words, and she is the one who easily chokes on such things. She remembers that Leona asked her if she had ever felt anything like that. Her friend said that in those moments, she realizes that she has a weakness for such things. Suddenly, the Duke grabs the hand of the girl, who had already gotten up from her seat. He, a little worried, asks her to tell him a little more about her preferences. The boy asks her if she prefers formal clothes. He says that he won't be able to change his appearance to look like a puppy, but he can change his clothes. When suddenly, the girl says that she feels fine just the way she is. Roberta admits that she is actually more interested in his tastes. She says that this is where, for example, he likes to go and what catches his attention. Meanwhile, Sir Rory, his wife, and the maid watch them without understanding why they aren't coming. Roberta points out that visiting such a place for the sake of the counselor's pregnant wife, or being interested in a story where the woman seems traumatized, is not at all in the spirit of the Archduke. She says it's about altruism and compassion. The girl suddenly points her finger at his forehead and tells him that he should think about it. Then her finger drops to his tie, and she adds that he too must act from the heart. Roberta informs him that only if he does good will a wonderful destiny await him. Upon leaving, the girl says this could be a wonderful place, next to the library window, and a kind woman with whom to share something. Finally, she says all this hasn't been important for a long time now. A while later, Roberta, thinking a bit, sits down at a table on the street. Her less cheerful brother sits opposite her, waiting for something. Seeing this picture, the maids notice that the young lady has been very distant lately, and the young master agrees with this. They talked about how Oliver was filled with anticipation when he heard about this, and this hooligan has become the main dopamine generator, but he behaves even more mediocrely than expected. They point out that it is quite unusual for her to be so calm and insensitive, because normally she attracts chaos and destruction. Claire looks at those sitting opposite each other and realizes that the young lady is already a full adult. She saw that Roberta was finally learning all the intricacies of love. Realizing this, the maid felt light and well in her soul, from which she could exhale calmly. Her lover used to be a girl who loved puppies, but she soon became a woman who already loves men. The maid says she feels sorry for Mr. Oliver, and that maybe he should look for dopamine elsewhere. And her companion points out that this was still a better place. Suddenly, Roberta breaks the silence and addresses her brother, telling him she feels very lonely lately. Oliver, feeling no dopamine at all, says that apparently their relationship is not going as well as he expected. The girl says that is why, to briefly alleviate the feeling of loneliness, she needs a cute companion. The boy's dopamine level slowly rises, and he looks at his sister with surprise. She directly says that the name of this companion is Nathan Palamades. He was a puppy-faced bard, as well as a youth idol and fiancé of Roberta Bernadette, the villain of Leona's misfortunes. Oliver's dopamine levels reach the limit, and the girl asks him if she can invite the bard to her house. Roberta adds that he fits her type perfectly. The maids, seeing and hearing this, look at the girl with surprise, not expecting such a request. Claire realizes that she has truly become a woman who loves men. Roberta has been in an unstable situation for some time now. This happened after experiencing an unfortunate fate 19 times in a row. She seemed to have gone crazy from the fear and loneliness that tormented her. The girl seemed to be desperately walking towards the fire that was mercilessly flying towards her. She approached everyone who showed her even a hint of kindness. Roberta understood that the Duke was actually complete scum. She needed to get out of here as soon as possible. She knew there were still many people who could comfort her. The girl says she heard that Nathan has no idea, but he is such a charming idiot that he melts hearts with his sweet speeches. She reports that his adorable and silly behavior makes him look like a puppy, that he is her type. Just in case, her brother asks if she means pomades. She remembers that they are quite close to her family, and Roberta believes that is why they got engaged. Oliver happily says that in that case, he will send an invitation to the boy, and they will meet in the afternoon. He reports that he was worried that the girl had grown up while he was away, but she is still the same. Claire looks at them and realizes that the young master was ready to face a love triangle, while the lady got involved with a charming scoundrel. It was for this reason that her desires were finally fulfilled. A crowd begins to gather in the street, and the man says that on the day of St. Owen Re, people can give their loved ones special experiences. He reveals that this incredibly sacred relic can be bought in his shop. Claire looks thoughtfully at the page she received and studies it carefully. It depicted a sacred relic, which might well make one think. Suddenly, the maid asked the Ram sitting opposite about a sacred relic that could purify the human spirit. She says it might seem frivolous, that's why she called him, even though she is busy. Claire admits that her lover has been acting very strangely lately. She says that if you think about it, it started a couple of months ago. The girl didn't know why she initially suddenly announced the end of the world. Claire was also embarrassed to have ruined her beautiful dress. After this, the girl wore some kind of horror for the ball instead of her wonderful gift. The maid reports that she also met the Archduke, but this is too personal. She asks directly what could have happened to her dear lady. She says that Elrond is truly the best fortune teller in Mutin. For unknown reasons, she only predicted the fate of the maids and predicted all historical events in Mutin. The Ram says that, in fact, this is quite an old story. She thinks about the question the woman sitting opposite her asked her recently. The girl starts by saying that over time people always change. From time to time, these changes happen in a very unexpected direction. She reports that this is especially true for her ladies and those around her. The Rome reports that Lady Roberta is surrounded by 3 men at the same time. One of them says it is the fearless demon king. The second man is a knight madly devoted to the girl. And this time a new hero appeared, that is, a third fickle jester. Meanwhile, the boy who just arrived is already approaching Roberta. It was Nathan, but she didn't remember what kind of person he was. The girl remembered how he asked her if she was hurt, and then said she had been through a lot. When she asked him what he was talking about, the boy said she might have hurt herself when she lost her wings and fell from the sky. He said she was as beautiful as an angel, and it was not surprising at all that he fell in love with her. Like a typical womanizer, he captivated Roberta in her 19 attempts, only to betray her later when he set his sights on Leona, the guy who wanted to cheat on her, but couldn't even get Leona to look at her. She remembered how he told her she was very wrong, while holding a bouquet of flowers in his hand. Then Nathan swore many times that he would always be by her side. The boy promised that he would not leave her, even if the whole world turned its back on her. The girl knew these were empty words, not said seriously, but at some point they comforted her. It was perfect for alleviating the feeling of loneliness without any commitment. Nathan asks the girl if she was hurt because she had to go through a lot. After a short silence, Roberta indifferently asks what he means, knowing the answer for a long time. The boy reports that this happened when she lost her wings, blushing profusely. Suddenly, he starts confusing his words, after which he covers his mouth with his hand. She wonders why he starts talking if he is an excellent speaker. Nathan suddenly admits that he is actually one of her fans. Roberta looks at him inquisitively, not quite understanding what he is talking about, because she is not a celebrity or anything like that. The boy, indignant, asks her what she means when she says she is not a celebrity. He reports that even though she was called eccentric, she is always true to her work. He points out that she always shelters stray dogs and is very concerned about the labor rights of ordinary citizens and current ones. The bard points out that the young lady is known as a dark angel who has a beneficial influence. He says that her angelic actions made him think that she doesn't pay attention to stray dogs or social problems, but is only obsessed with women. Suddenly, the boy takes out a guitar he specially brought for this meeting. He asks her to listen to the song he wrote for her as a sign of his transformation. Nathan points out that he knows he is being a bit rude because he is in a hurry. Roberta looks at him, dumbfounded, and realizes that she cannot say a word about this. It was a big surprise for her that he had changed so much since their last meeting. The bard suddenly looks up and smiles when he sees her in front of him. After this, the girl's face becomes even more surprised by what is happening, because before he was completely different. Claire comments that her lover must have gotten carried away too much. She couldn't believe there were 3 people hovering around her, which was a bit abnormal. Because this was already a love square, she enthusiastically asks if this will lead to some kind of disaster. The Ram says that everything is true, and, in his opinion, this will still lead to disaster. Suddenly, at the end of his sentence, he comments that it wouldn't be the first time this has happened. Claire looks at him inquisitively, not quite understanding what he means. The woman sitting opposite suddenly wonders if she really wants to save the young lady. She says that she loved her young lady much more than her own, and that's why she wanted to change her tragic fate. Gravel walks slowly down the street, while the people around him talk about how the extraordinary sacred relic is available again in many shops. A boy passes by and asks her to buy him an apple, but she simply ignores him. The Ram gets up talking to his interlocutor, when suddenly he hears his name. He sees a young lady not far from her, who says she promised to leave for a minute, but several hours have already passed. Gravia reports that her mother has disappeared again, and her father is very furious. The young lady grabs the maid's sleeve and asks how she can leave her alone. Very angry, the girl suddenly hugs her surprised maid. She asks him if it's because she was angry yesterday, after which she asks for forgiveness and begs him not to leave her. The lady starts apologizing over and over again, without stopping. The Ram gently pushes the young lady, trying to bring her to reason. She gently strokes his cheeks while continuing to ask for forgiveness. The maid asks her to finally calm down and stop doing this. She invites her to start by just looking into her eyes. After that, she finally says that she should start breathing with her. Suddenly, the maid turns around and tells Claire that she will help her save the young lady. She adds that, unfortunately, she cannot guarantee the outcome. According to her, there is a possibility that her intervention can save something. But unfortunately, it can also mean that there is no longer any chance of recovery. A boy selling apples suddenly approaches a strange man. Meanwhile, the old man announces that the sacred relic, which can guarantee happiness, is finally available. He, interested in his papers, does not notice the boy and they collide. A large amount of paper and ripe apples fly in different directions. The Elram tells his interlocutor that this is playing with fate. A boy with an already empty basket is suddenly picked up by an archduke who appears from somewhere. Gerald tells the man that it's good that he is working hard on St. Ovenry's Day. He adds that one cannot harm other innocent people at the same time. St. Ovenry's Day is the celebration of the brave defender of Juremberg in the fight against demons. And on this day, people give sacred relics to their loved ones, and a great festival is celebrated for 3 days. He points out that in just 10 minutes, he had already seen 50 of these flyers. The boy reads in the flyer that the relic will melt the heart of any girl. He suddenly realizes that there is no price on the flyer, and then asks how much it costs. The boy knew that people take advantage of those who want to buy these sacred relics, and considerably increases the price. Suddenly, the man apologized to the girl, and then asked if she was the daughter of the fruit seller from the shop opposite. The Duke, meanwhile, keeps asking about the price of the goods and still won't give in. Surori points out that if a man wants to give Lady Bernadette a relic, he shouldn't do it. This advice attracts the Duke's attention greatly, and he turns towards the voice. The advisor says that he fears the girl won't like such a gift. Surori says he will order all the leaves to be collected and removed immediately. Gerald thinks deeply about the words he just heard from his advisor. He remembers that the girl said she was actually more interested in his taste. Roberta said that the Duke didn't care, and that stories about traumatized women didn't bother him. He thinks it's absolutely impossible that she didn't like it. The boy remembers how she says he is beautiful just the way he is. Then the girl added that eventually she could find whatever she wanted. Suddenly, the man starts talking about something, which distracts the Duke from his thoughts. Sir Ori asks if he really believes that people take these flyers because they like them, and then says that they throw them away anyway. The man starts denying it, saying that people want to buy one of the sacred relics, and that its quality is worth being proud of. It was written on the paper that relics can calm anxiety. Moreover, in addition to this, they were able to heal a wounded heart. He asked if there are people who do not want to find peace. The boy remembers the day when Roberta, worried, scratched her neck out of fear. Suddenly, he quickly picks up one of the sheets on the ground. The men continue to argue that such a gift can be inconsiderate if the recipient's feelings are not taken into account. The Duke is accompanied by conflicting voices asking who he is to give someone peace, saying that this is a nuisance. Gerald carefully tries to fold the piece of paper and take it with him. Surori asks what will happen if a pregnant woman steps on and slips. He also adds that the child might trip while learning to walk, and the person opposite asks him why he is going so far. Suddenly, their dialogue is interrupted by this girl, who asks them to take the apple. She says that after accepting the gift, they will be able to apologize to each other. The boy says he understands that Surori is angry because his wife is pregnant. And the man, as the deadline approaches, is worried about the growing competition results. The girl realizes that, moreover, they haven't had lunch, which is why they are angry. She also hands the Duke a fresh apple and then tells him that everything will be fine. Gerald, smiling, points out that she has excellent business skills. The boy looks at him enthusiastically and tells him that apples are the most popular fruit and consumed, but they don't necessarily love everyone. According to her, this does not mean at all that they can be substituted with cakes. That's why she studies her potential customers carefully. The boy looks with satisfaction as two men who were previously in conflict make peace. The girl says that sometimes, even when a person shouldn't apologize, it is necessary to do so. The Duke realizes that it's a matter of time and remembers their first night. The bard comments that he regrets that they already have to say goodbye. The boy suddenly suggests comparing the size of their hands one last time. Roberta says she doesn't quite understand, but still agrees. Nathan blushes, deeply noticing how small his hand is. The girl looks at him with disgust, not knowing how to react. The bard says he hastily prepared the song he sang today. He admits he regrets not being able to show all his skills. Finally, Nathan wishes her luck, while Roberta looks at him indifferently. She understood that she had behaved rather strangely throughout the meeting. But unfortunately, she didn't understand how to behave with a person who had changed so much. The guy says he really wants everything that bothers Roberta today to disappear. He explains that, even though they met today, she seems very bewildered and it is already getting difficult for him. Nathan reports that during the conversation, she had a very worried expression on her face and kept staring into space. The boy says this is the type of fans who return to their idols and think they are wonderful, and they are also very concerned about them and sympathize even with the most common things. The girl again does not understand what is happening and mentally asks him to stop saying such kind words, because she only wanted to use him to get rid of loneliness. The boy asks to look at her hand and is surprised by how thin her wrist is, after which he notices that she is in excellent health. He asks her not to diet and not to lose a single gram while she is away. Roberta says that the idol, whom the boy came to meet and for whom he prepared a song, abruptly ended the meeting, claiming he had business, and then asked her if he was cruel. Claire finds herself not far from her bed, surprised by what she just heard. The maid says she has no idea what they are talking about now. The young lady reports that she seems to be gradually sliding into an abyss. She says it bothers her very much, which makes Claire stop. The maid suddenly says she was recently recommended a book, but she doesn't know what it means. She says it's a love story, which sparks her lover's interest. The book was about people who are destined to be together, but fate takes a strange turn when the main character's friend gets caught in the middle.